covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
It has created some level, or practicing your Islamic faith, it has created some level of tension and even division. And I'm going to give you an example of this. You're on. You're on air right now.
All right, welcome to the program. I'm your host, Tom Fallbush, and sorry, I had my earpiece out. I didn't hear when we were on the air. So welcome to the show. So very good. So today we're going to talk about something specific. We need your help. We need your assistance in doing helping us with producing this program. And obviously, we've asked in the past before, for just general support, but now we're actually asking for you to help participate. And what that means is this. And we're looking for citizen journalists, right? People that are concerned and interested in these sort of issues that we cover. Basically, local and state politics with a conservative perspective. Folks that are interested in that would help. May have a calling to help do something. Actually, because if you're listening to this radio station or watching this TV show, chances are you're interested in politics and the well-being of our country and the future of our nation and our state and so there's a reason you have an interest in that. I'm a firm believer that God kind of puts something in your heart, a concern, because He wants you to help step out and do something about it. Right? That's not there by accident. If you're worried about an issue or you see a concern about some direction that we're going and culturally or politically, whatever, I'm going to preach. I got my Make America Pray Again hat today, so I'm going to put this is my preacher hat. I'm going to put this on for a second and say, listen, God's telling you that maybe you are supposed to be part of the solution. Maybe you are someone that needs to step up and do something about it. So, in other words, you can sit around and doom scroll, and you can sit around and doom scroll. You can sit around and just watch social media and watch talk radio or listen to talk radio, watch programs like this, but what are you actually doing? I mean, obviously voting. Voting is important. We all need to get out and vote, and that's at the end of the day. If you don't vote, none of this matters. But beyond that, there's more that you can do. Obviously, you can give campaigns, et cetera. But why not help change the narrative? And one of the issues we're dealing with, especially in this state, is the narrative on dealing with state politics and local politics is always leans to the left, and the reason for that is because you've got a basically corporate media that kind of runs this state. You got either public media like KET, which let's face it, it's public broadcasting, so it's going to be a little bit left wing. You got NPR, you've got all the local TV stations in the state. And they're all run by big corporations that have corporate Wall Street sort of interest. They're all into DEI and the whole just corporate America that's been basically captured by the left. And so the only way we're going to help change the narrative is for the grassroots, for people like you and I to step up and change the narrative. And thankfully, we have things like the internet. We have things like a locally owned TV and radio station group like Word Media Group. We have that, and so and we've committed our time, our airtime to sort of these issues and to this effort. But it takes more than just what we can do. And so, anyway, let me just spell it this way. We're looking for folks that want to be journalists, that want to be investigative reporters, that want to be a documentary filmmaker, or maybe a video editor, or do somebody that can do man on the street interviews, and it doesn't take much. It just takes you and your phone, you and a little bit of time, and you and a passion, about a passion about a specific topic. For example, let's roll through some topics that we're trying to cover that we could probably use help with, and so it'd be nice to have someone that could focus in on some of these issues. So, for example, the immigration issue here in Louisville. That's a huge issue. There's so much that could be covered there. We talked about it on the show, but it would be great to have some folks go out and actually start doing some investigating. Say where is Catholic Charities putting all these people? What are all these NGOs that are being paid by the government? What are they doing with this? How are these neighborhoods being transformed? How are we creating all these little ethnic enclaves that are just disruptive to our society, to our culture and community? That's a huge issue, and no one's really covering it. I mean, all the businesses that are taking advantage of that, all the corruption. What about the cartel? The cartel's active in Louisville. It'd be interesting to see what's going on there. Let's get some folks, looking into that issue, and be brave, and let's just go out and try to uncover this stuff, because. At the end of the day, we're still on a war footing. Just because Trump's in office, I mean, he's embattled every day. I mean, there's plenty of things going on. But this state, because this show focuses more on state issues and local issues, the battle is nowhere near won. We got a Republican Senate and a state legislature, but we have a governor that's left wing is all get out. We've got mayors that are off the rails most of the time. So we need some. We need to be on a war footing, and this is a time in a day of age. Can't talk today. I got started the show late. I'm all confabulated, but basically we're in an information war, right? And so if you want to fight the battle in this day and age, it's all about information. And so creating a narrative and reporting on things is the key to all this. And so we're asking folks like yourself that may have some time, who may want to study on a specific issue, or maybe just do a report here or there, or if you're just out and you notice something and you want to send a video in, say, hey, I'm John Jones over here, and I'm at the state capitol today, and I'm noticing this protest, and it's Antifa's over here, and they're causing a ruckus, and this is kind of crazy. I'm going to go over and talk to somebody, just do an interview. Just having grassroots journalism, and then having an outlet for it like this, I think it would be very compelling, and I think you as listeners would like to see this and enjoy it, and I think it would be great content. We're going to help move the needle on all these different topics. So immigration, the economy. We've got and just Andy Bashir. He's going to run for president here. So we have that issue. We've got. How we know Andy better than anybody. So there we go. No kings, King Andy on the screen there. We know Andy better than anybody. So we need Kentuckians that really have been impacted by that guy's policies, and to really speak out. I was at a church where they were taking my license plates because we decided to go to Easter service back in 2020, and Andy was going to lock me up for going to church. I'd like to see some interviews like that, and so King Andy, we need to cover King Andy better. Of course, the whole data center thing over in Oldham County was a great local grassroots topic. I would have loved to have had some folks on the ground there to do some reporting. Gosh, there's so many issues we cover on this. Education, school choice, and just keeping the Republican leadership in the state accountable, because there's a lot of times when parties get sort of a supermajority, they get kind of lazy. They appreciate. We've got the power, we can do what we want, but you know what? We kind of like our position. We don't want to take any risk because we might lose our power, and so that's what happens with Republicans more often than not. When Republicans get into leadership and get control and get power, their instincts are to be conservative and not be proactive and be activist and try to move issues forward, especially on the social front, on social issues. It's much easier to be a country club Republican and just go out and vote for a tax cut or something like that. But to deal with abortion, I'll get called names if I deal with abortion issues or LGBT issues, and so we've got to hold the Republican leadership in the state accountable, because I think half of them are rhinos, And so we've got a good cadre of some conservative MAGA types that are helping move things forward, and a lot of them have been on the show, but I would say half the team there are probably rhinos and are just content to have power, and so we've got to hold them accountable, and so I'd love to see some reporting on that. The LGBT issue, all the transgender stuff and how that's impacting schools and our lives, and how they want to cancel you, and just you bow down to the flag or else you get canceled. So much to be done there. So anyway, so here's how to do this. So we've got a website. It's kyvoice.org, and there's a contact page there. Send us an email if you're interested in just doing anything. Just like I said, video editing. Let me go through a list of things we're looking for. So video editing, a field reporter, just some sort of video contributor, where we record short videos or opinion pieces. A radio correspondent, somebody can do audio stories, maybe not video, but if you just want to do audio, we can do that. We're looking for some writers and researchers. We need folks to help us do some show prep, do some research on certain topics. Campus correspondents, investigative reporting, video editors, social media contributors, event organizing and fundraising support. Anyway, it's a lot that can be done. If you ever wanted to be an activist and really try to do something about your political concerns, and work with us. We need your help, and we can really amplify your efforts. So we'll be right back. We're going to talk more about how you can be a citizen journalist, and also we're going to talk about how Islam is moving into Louisville and what we can do about it. So we'll talk to you soon. Well, welcome back to the show. So we're talking about Kentucky's Voice and how you can be a part of it, how you can be a citizen journalist, how you can help us investigate stories, cover news that's of interest of you. At the end of the day, the conservative movement, especially in this state, is going to have to be a grassroots effort, and that's a beautiful thing about where the Republican Party and where conservatism is today. It's very much a populist movement, and it's a rejection of the elites. And we've had sort of a revolution of the elites in the past 40 years, where they've kind of done a top-down revolution. They're trying to change the culture, trying to change, take over institutions, and it's elites that have these more globalist, left-wing, World Economic Forum type values, and with the alphabet people and what they call the globo homo. If you look that up, it's kind of a term for for homogenous globalization, and also has a lot of other connotations too. So they just want everybody to be this world citizen and blur. There's no distinguished nations, there's no borders. We're just all this. We're just economic units in the global economy, and it's just kind of weird and sickening, and because they get to, it's basically just a world government. They just want to set up a world government. And so the people in countries like the U.S. and Europe and all over the world are starting to reject that. They're kind of waking up to this, going, hold on, this is kind of unusual. This is weird. First of all, what's all this immigration stuff about? I mean, we have a country, we have a culture. We kind of want to protect that. We value that. And why suddenly a mosque being built in my backyard? This is kind of strange. And where do they all come from? I didn't vote for that. I mean, they might be nice people on some level, but they don't relate to me, and I don't understand who they are. And you're just kind of you're destroying our whole culture and fabric of life. What are you doing? And shut up, racist. And so at the end of the day, if you're going to be pushing back on this, it has to be grassroots. It has to be you. It has to be you. You can't rely on Donald Trump. You can't rely on us even. You can't rely on some institution, even the Republican Party. They're co-opted in a lot of ways. And so it's really up to you. And so and it's always been up to us at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the American Revolution was won by 3% of the population that actually fought. It actually stood up and took a musket and went out and shot up the British. And so the Civil War, all these great moments in history, it took the average American to step up and do things. Even the Civil Rights Movement, it took the average American to step up and do something. And so so this is your moment. This is the moment where if you've ever cared about your country, you ever cared about your state and your future and your family, you need to step up and do something. The battle is nowhere over. The left's on their heels a little bit. They're kind of, the culture's kind of like, oh, what are we going to do? Left or right, left or right. It ain't over. And they're coalescing. They're trying to come back, and they still have all these all these institutions are captured by them still. And so just because we have a little bit of wind in our sails doesn't mean that. So we need you to jump on board now and help. And so here's how to do that. Obviously we could use your support. We're a nonprofit. We're asking this whole effort is funded by basically people like you that are watching. I mean, the salaries that are paid, the airtime, and all this is donation driven. And so we could absolutely use your help. And I think we'll put up a text number here if you want a text to give. But today I didn't want to talk about that so much. I wanted to talk about you being part of the program, you being a citizen journalist, you having an issue that you're passionate about and you're concerned about, and you kind of covering that beat, so to sense. So hi, I'm Julie, and I'm down here at the school board, and they're voting on whether to put Heather Has Two Mommies into the library, and this is kind of, we're going to go interview parents right now. We're going to talk to them and see what they think, and wouldn't that be cool if you could do that? Well, guess what? You can do that. You can absolutely do that. You can just take your phone or just get a hold of us. We'll give you a little extra equipment like a gimbal and a microphone, and we'll send you down there. We'll train you on how to do this, and you can just be an actual citizen journalist. Julie reporting from the school board, and it'd be awesome. And just first of all, imagine the impact you'll have, because this is real everyday people, grassroots people doing this sort of work. And some reporter and some Harvard trained journalist. This is you, Julie from Louisville, doing this, and it has so much more impact. And so we'd love to. So we'll help you do that. We'll help you. We'll give you the equipment if you need it, the training, the direction, and so what to do. So I'm going to put up our website again. So Kentucky's Voice. .org. So kyvoice.org, kyvoice.org. Then there's a contact link there with a form where you can just fill out your name and information and say, hey, I'm interested in volunteering. I'm interested in just being a journalist or an editor or somebody that can help with social media, or I'm a young person. I'm a college student. I'm a young Republican at the University of Louisville, and I like to do that. I'm part of Turning Point. We can help you. Hey, I go to so and so First Baptist, and we've got a group here that talks about these issues. Love to help out. Listen, there's a huge network of people out there that share our values, share our concerns about America and where we're at, and so we want you to take a step. We're basically giving you a platform. We are going to give you this airtime. We're going to give you this TV show that's airing twice a day on a full power television station in Louisville, Kentucky. It's airing several times a day on WGTK AM, the top conservative talk station. You will be on there. And if you don't want to be on as a talent, your voice, you can help us produce those programs. You can be behind the scenes, working with us, doing editing or doing research or doing some. I'd love to have somebody just do some research on who are all these NGOs that are pumping all these refugees into Louisville. Who are these people? Where are they getting their money? That'd be a great story, and somebody needs to really dig into that. And we've been doing some of it, but it's going to take some homework to really dig in and find out who these people are, and all these left-wing groups. I did a show a couple of weeks ago on all the left-wing activist groups in Louisville. Love to figure out who these people are. What are they doing? What are their plans? What's their plans for Louisville? What would they like to see in Louisville? This is your home, right? This is where you come from. You should have a voice in what happens in the city. And if we don't step up and have a voice, all these people, all these leftists who their whole lives are nothing about politics because they're just usually miserable, unhappy people, and they need some sort of meaning in life, so they throw themselves into left-wing politics because that's their religion, or their voice will usually dominate because they're usually showing up and they're more active. And so, conservatives, God bless us, we've got a life, we got families, we got jobs, we're living lives, but there's a time where you got to step up, man. It's like, listen, this is your country, this is your home. This is your house. This is your family. This is your neighborhood. This is, this is you, and you've got to step up and defend what's right and do the right thing. And so be part of this, be part of Kentucky's Voice. The whole point of this show, the name of the project, Kentucky's Voice. It's your voice. We want your voice to be on the air, because that's what's important. What do Kentuckians really feel about these sort of issues? So reach out, go to our website, or you can just send an email to myself if you want, Tom at WBNA21.com, or you can call our offices as well. 502, 502-964-2121. Or just go to the website, go to our Facebook. I mean, there's a million ways to get a hold of us. Facebook, Twitter, we're on Twitter, X, and Instagram, and YouTube. You can message us on YouTube. Just whatever way, just get a hold of us, and don't stop until you actually reach us, and say, hey, listen, I want to help. I've got some time. I'm interested in this topic, this story, and I think we need to cover it, and I'll be willing to help. Or if you just want to show up and help us produce this show every day, we'd love to have you as a guest. Say, hey, this is Joe over here, and he's dealt with all this at his job and was fired from his job because he was he wouldn't put up the pride flag or something. Who knows? So many stories in the city. They're just not being covered. We need your help to do it. So get on the phone, get on the computer, get a hold of us. kyvoice.org, and be a citizen journalist. Be part of the solution. Let your voice be heard. You are the grassroots. This is a grassroots movement and a moment in American history. And if you don't step up, we don't step up, we're done. All right, welcome back to the show. You're watching Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush, and we're talking about how maybe you could be a part of the program, and because we are looking for citizen journalists. We're looking for people like you that have an interest in politics and culture and everything that's happening in the world today, and especially locally and statewide, and how there's just not enough coverage of issues from a conservative perspective, because most of the news media that deals with local and state politics is generally going to be left of center, because it's going to be corporate. It's going to be, it's like the Courier Journal or Nexstar or all these national groups that own all the radio stations and TV stations. So you're not going to hear your point of view heard or stories covered. From your perspective, or even stories that are real stories just being covered at all, regardless of your perspective. Sometimes they just don't choose to pick a story because they don't think it's a problem. It's like, that's not an issue. No one cares about that. Well, yeah, we care about that. Why don't you cover it and let people know about what's going on? And so, so let's start doing that. Let's find issues and things that we're concerned about, which there are plenty of them from the conservative perspective in America. And let's actually do some stories on this. But we need your help. We need you. And we say that in the sense that there's a team of people that we host these programs, and a lot of it's just opinion programs, which everybody's got an opinion, and shows like this are relatively easy to do in the sense that you do a little research, you show up, and you give an opinion and you go. But to do some of the real deeper on this, on the street kind of investigative reporting and journalism requires a little bit more daily effort at it and a focused effort on a specific story and a specific beat. And that's where we think you could help. You could be that journalist that could cover a topic and really drive it home and bring awareness to it that no one else could. And so, especially if you're impacted by it, there's a lot of folks that are impacted by things, that are just like, what, I wish somebody talked about this. My kid just got, kicked off the bus or missed the bus because of the whole JCPS busing system's all screwed up. Who's covering that? We're in a way that's critical to the system. And so, well, maybe you could do it. And so. So anyway, so how to do that, how to get involved, it's you go to our website, kyvoice.org, and there's a contact link there. Just send us an email through the forum, or you can call us at the radio station, a TV station, 571-0970 or 502-964-2121, and just say, hey, I'd be interested in helping. I think I'd like to do some work on this front, and just whatever you can. I'm not saying full-time work or whatever. Just, hey, you got a few hours a week you want to put into something, and we could take it and put it on the air. And wouldn't that be something that you could actually take an issue that you're concerned about and actually cover it and bring it to light that in a way that no one else is. And so talk about having an impact. There we go. Now, I could just sit around and I can give $20 to the Trump campaign, or I can actually maybe do a story or help produce a story or help do some editing or do some social media on this topic, and bring awareness to people. So there we go. So we could certainly use your help. And also just supporting the project as well. We are a nonprofit. We're listener supported. So you can donate as well, and we certainly appreciate that because that helps cover just the airtime and everything else. There's a text to give number there. It's you can text KY Voice to 53555. So 53555. Text KY Voice to 53555, and that will ping back a little text that says, "Hey, thanks for being willing to give. We'd love to have you give." So. So appreciate you doing that as well. So, okay, I'm going to switch gears to another topic, and I'm wondering if anybody else is noticing this. I've been, I do a lot of traveling around Louisville throughout the week, and I don't know if it's just me, but I am noticing just an uptick in, a lot of, I guess, obviously immigration in general has been huge in the city for a while, but specifically Muslim immigration and Islamic immigration. I'm seeing a lot of women in hijabs. I'm seeing a lot of stores that are popping up that are catering to this specific community. Like, for example, there's several of these halal butchers that are popping up. Some in Buchel, some in, just everywhere. If you don't know what a halal butcher is, that's basically a butcher shop where it's where a Muslim butcher will butcher the animal, and they do it in a certain way, and they actually say a prayer to Allah and all this stuff. It's basically like kosher. It's like kosher for a Jew, for being Jewish. Halal is like kosher for Muslims, and so that's a sign that you've got a whole lot of people in your area that are Muslim and that are, And now listen, Americans are very generous, wonderful, loving, open-minded, freedom-loving people, and especially when it comes to freedom of religion and all this. So there's a certain amount of like, well, some of them are Muslims, we're Catholics, whatever, let them live their life, that's fine. But there's, if you've lived through the past 20 years in this country and lived through the war on terror, and you lived, it's not, what are you, 9/11? Let's just talk about there's inherent issues with Islam as a culture and as a religion and as a society, and it impacts society in a way that is very difficult to manage and difficult to work through. And if you don't recognize that, then you're kind of blind. And here's how to open your eyes. Go to look at Europe. Go look at England right now. Go look. Matter of fact, I'm going to play a clip right now. Here's the language. Here's the language in Europe about this topic. Oops, let me get to the right clip here. And so, okay, here we go. We're going to play this real quick, and we'll. Mr. Producer, go ahead.
Almost everyone I talk to in France said, yeah, it's coming. It's coming here. Well, what they mean by civil war is not like one army against the other. They mean like the Islamic suburbs and a lot of the migrants riot. Country people get fed up with it, and they take up arms. The government's caught between. There's a guy, I don't know if you ever listened to the Louise Perry podcast. She's an English podcaster. She's very good. She had a guy on about a month ago named David Betts. He's a professor at King's College London in the War Studies Department, and his academic specialty is civil wars. And he gave this very, absolutely chilling, because he was so level and serene, analysis saying of why the UK is headed inevitably to civil war. It all has to do with the fragmentation of society, with the state valuing these migrants and Muslims more than it values its own people. You might have heard of the rape gang scandal where Pakistani Muslim men were kidnapping and sexually molesting thousands of white working-class English girls from the city. The government knew about it, the police knew about it, the media knew about it, didn't want to talk about it because multiculturalism, keep the peace. Betts says that everything that the current Labour government in the UK is doing is out of a textbook to start a civil war, to inflame the populace, the native-born English, so much that they rise up not against the Muslims and the migrants per se, but against their own ruling class who've allowed this to happen. And Betts says in that podcast, he says, don't think, English listeners, that you can go to Europe to escape this. The same conditions exist in most every Western European country. Not in Hungary, Poland, Eastern Europe, because they've been much stronger in keeping migrants out. But it's really true. And this is one thing J.D. Vance was trying to talk about. And the media over there in Europe and our media want to suppress talk of this. And I'm not talking as a conspiracy theorist. It's so, the statistics are overwhelming. They want to suppress talk of this for the reason that we don't want to encourage the right-wing nuts. That's what I saw when I moved to Dallas after 9/11. When we moved down there, I was at the Dallas Morning News, and I knew a lot about Islamic extremism. I'd educated myself after 9/11, and I get there, and there's a lot of it in North Texas. At least there was at the time. This was 20 years ago or so. And I would write about it, and I would get a lot of pushback in my newsroom from other journalists who were more concerned that some rednecks in Texas might think bad thoughts about Muslims than they were about the fact that there were some Muslims in North Texas who were radicalizing the young people. It's just
so there we go. So this is perfectly said. If you want to see where our future is, go to England, go to France. If you allow a lot of, I hate to say it, just allow a lot of Muslim immigration, because the Muslim world is not reformed in the way it views itself from a religious perspective and a political perspective. And so, I mean, for example, just the wearing of the burqa, of these ladies walking around Louisville wearing burqas, what is that telling you? That's telling you that they are not willing to assimilate. They don't want to buy into American culture and wear American clothing and try to be, just like us. They want to bring their culture and maintain it and create an enclave where they maintain that, and their religion encourages that. And listen, Christians have a similar approach. We believe we should be Christians and live our faith but Islam is a little different in the sense that it's more than just a religious. It's actually a political system as well, and they look at the culture and the society as we must turn it all Muslim eventually. We can live here as a minority, but there's a point where when we grow, it is our duty to take over and force everybody into Islam. And you say, well, Tom, that's the extremist portion of Islam. Well, yeah, but maybe it's a minority of Muslims that really want to push that, but that minority is what counts. And for example, the American Revolution, I said only 3% fought for the American Revolution. Well, there's a lot more than 3% of Muslims that believe this. And matter of fact, I'm going to play another clip here. This is a Muslim imam, and this is what he's preaching. And let's just see what he has to say about Muslims' duty in America or in their culture.
Go and conquer the adjacent country. What do? We kill them all? No. The Prophet says, the first thing you do is call them to Islam. If they refuse, then tell them Allah obliged upon you to pay taxation. In return, when enemy comes and attack your country, you don't fight. We Muslims.
The Muslims will protect you. We'll finish this clip when we come back from this break. But Muslim scholars and Muslim imams, what do they really preach behind closed doors? This is what they preach. This is, we must all submit to Islam, or else there's a price to pay. So we're talking about Islam, immigration, and Louisville.
Radio online at kyvoice.org.
All right, we're talking about immigration today, talking about Muslim immigration specifically. And if you've driven around Louisville and look at certain areas of town, you're starting to notice a whole lot of shops and businesses with Arabic signs out front. Yeah, and it's, granted, I listen, I love Middle Eastern food. I'm a big fan of a falafel and some hummus, right? And so at the same time, there is a challenge with integrating people from Muslim backgrounds into Western culture, into Western society. And because by nature, people that have Islamic backgrounds are discouraged to assimilate into the countries that they immigrate to. Obviously they want to come here and because for economic benefits and whatever, they want Walmart and a BMW, but they still want to go to the mosque and listen to an imam preach about how all these pagans and infidels that you are in the midst of, that you're not supposed to, conform to their ways of doing things. And matter of fact, you need to be kind of belligerent and sort of hostile to, and to the point where eventually when your numbers increase enough that you should encourage them to submit to Islam, and Islam should just go ahead and take over, and we're going to have Sharia courts. We're not going to pay attention to the local court system. We're going to set up our own courts, which is happening in England, and there are probably some Sharia underground court systems here in America. And we're going to basically subvert the country you're in, and so we can kind of take it over for our purposes, and that's just this isn't some conspiracy. This is just happening, and it's reality, and it's not some right-wing nut saying all this. It's just look around, look at Europe, look at countries, look at the Middle East. The Middle East used to be Christian, all right. Egypt used to be Christian, the whole Palestinian area, Syria, Turkey, all that was Christian. Islam has an inherent, it's by its very nature, it's expansionist, and it's has a mandate to go out and conquer the world for Islam, and by sword or by conversion. But either way, and they haven't given that up. They just say, oh, well, it's jihad. Jihad is jihad, and it's it's internal. Doesn't mean conquer the world. Well, yeah, maybe 60% of Muslims believe that, but the 40% believe it's a real jihad, and they're really out there trying to do something about it. And so, I guess a good way to look at it is like, should we allow immigration from a openly Nazi fascist country where everybody in that country abides to a Nazi ideology? Am I comparing Islam and Nazism? Well, I mean, there's some similarities. They both hate the Jews, let's just say that. And they are kind of expansionist, and they kind of want to. If you don't submit to them, you must. They're in a sense they're supremacist. They're Islam is sort of a Muslim supremacist religion. Well, so is Nazism. It was a German supremacist religion, and so So should we? Is it wise for a country to just import a bunch of Nazis and say, yeah, they're fine. Oh, they're Nazi. They got a little Nazi religion. We'll let them go over there and build a little Nazi temple, and we'll do that. Matter of fact, let me finish playing what this imam says about this. So let's get back to what he was saying here. So
Muslims go and conquer the adjacent country. What do? We kill them all? No. The Prophet says, the first thing you do is call them to Islam. If they refuse, then tell them Allah obliged upon you to pay taxation. In return, when enemy comes and attack your country, you don't fight. We Muslims protect you. Subhanallah, for this little money? Yes. And you enjoy sitting in your homes and in your country and live your life normally. But the ruling is for Sharia. So you do not open nightclubs, you do not fornicate. If they refuse, then we have to fight. And if we fight you, then we capture you, you become our slaves, and we take your land, and you take because you refuse. I give you two good options in the coming 40, 50 years when the Muslims become strong, as they're supposed to be. When Muslims.
There we go. So you get the gist of it. Hey, we gave you a good option. You're either supposed to, pay the tax, or 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 just submit or become Muslim. Either pay the tax or go. Those are good options. If you don't do that, then we'll, So, I mean, this is now. Is this mainstream Islam? Well, there's I would say a good percentage, higher percentage than you would like, of Islamic scholars believe this. Let's go down to Tennessee, down in Murfreesboro. Here's a recent story about what they're dealing with, and so let's see how the people are responding down there. So they want to build a mosque in Murfreesboro, a huge mosque, and so coming to a city near you. Here we go.
Kind of religious duel in the middle of Tennessee. A group of Muslims want to build a 52,000 square foot mega mosque. A group of Christian townspeople say no way. Who's right? Here's Steve Osunsami.
In God-fearing Murfreesboro, Tennessee, they are downright furious that their county government is saying yes to a new Islamic center.
I'm sorry, but they seem to be against everything that I believe in. And so I don't want them necessarily in my neighborhood.
Our country was founded through the founding fathers, through the true God, the Father, and Jesus Christ.
Last night, more than 600 people jammed a lobby in a county boardroom saying quite openly they don't want to live next to Muslims.
If construction does begin, I would also encourage contractors to boycott it, and I would encourage the boycott of any contractor associated with the project.
It hasn't helped that the project is truly massive, more than 15 acres with several hundred parking spaces, a large cemetery, a pond, a soccer field, a 12,000 square foot playground, and 2 huge pavilions that are larger than the average home.
It is not a huge mosque as they are saying.
The religious leader behind it says he's well within the law. He says his 250 families have been living and worshiping quietly in the town for years and now need to expand.
This place is too small for us now, and we have to move.
Islamic organizations say the open hostility against them is never ending. Last month, near Ground Zero, they opposed a mosque there, and just 40 miles from Murfreesboro, neighbors stopped a project cold.
There's prejudice. There's fearing the unknown. And the Muslim community is no secret. It is not known in the American society. It's not well presented or perceived in the general public.
The Muslims in Tennessee now need a few $100,000 in financing. Their neighbors are promising to stand in the way. Steve Osunsami, ABC News, Atlanta.
There we go. So, and that little priest in the bottom corner, that's his YouTube channel. So, and he had a great story and perspective on all this. But yeah, so here we go. Down in Murfreesboro, the people are going, well, maybe we shouldn't encourage the growth of Islam in our community. Maybe we have some concerns about that. And should you have concerns about that? I mean, freedom of religion, this is America. But at the same time, America was founded on Judeo-Christian principles, not Islamic principles. Would America have come about if it was founded by Muslims? Right? So you got to ask these questions. These are real deep-seated questions about, what are we about again? And it's uncomfortable because we're dealing with culture and ethnicity and sometimes racial issues if people look different, and so it's easy for people to point fingers. Either you're a bad person, you're the racist, you're like the person. People are just being prejudiced. They're fear of the unknown. Well, the problem is it's not the unknown anymore, and actually prejudice can be good if the judgment is based on sound reasoning and experience. Right? We don't want this sort of radicalism and I guess communities have a certain amount of social capital, right? Social capital is a technical term, academic term for how much it's the value of how all the different connections in a community, how much people trust one another, right? And so if you have a high trust society, you have high social capital. You have a low trust society, you have low social capital. Right now, London has very, very low social capital. They're talking about civil war. That's what they're talking about in England. And so, because they have such a rise of Islamic extremism, and because of the importation of Muslims, with Muslims, you get Islamic extremism. You just can't avoid it. It's within that culture. It might be a minority of that culture, but it's the vocal dominant minority, and it's the one that, and people say, oh, it's not the majority of Muslims. Well, it only took a small percentage of people to do things. Like how many Bolsheviks were there in the Soviet Union? There are only a handful of them, but they took over. How many of anything, any sort of movement? It doesn't take a lot of people. It just takes, a support of the radicals to actually do things. So anyway, It's odd. I don't know. I'm just starting to notice it, and I thought, well, you know what? This is a topic we need to talk about, because what should we do? I mean, what can we? First of all, maybe we could go talk to Catholic Charities. First of all, you're Catholic Charities, so why are you bringing in a lot of refugees from Islamic countries? Maybe that's not. If I had time, I will show you this video of all these Muslims in Melbourne, Australia, doing a huge march, and I'll see if I can pull up here if we have enough time. A huge march of people, of them walking around and going up to the Melbourne Cathedral, stopping out in front of the Melbourne Cathedral, and just praying and kind of bowing, and just honest, in a sense, praying against it. And so, and we're talking about thousands of people, so thousands of Muslims praying against the main religious symbol of Australia, and that's, is that what you want? Is that what we want? We want a religion that is sort of, let me say it, hostile to American culture in a lot of ways, growing in numbers and influence to where they can march around your church and bow down and pray against it, and it just intimidate people there, and it's no. I've had more time. I'd play some clips from Dearborn, Michigan, of a lot of Shiites going out and doing their thing and waving the Palestinian flags, and it's just kind of odd. We know where this goes. We're lucky that we're not Europe, in the sense that we can sit back in America and look at where this goes. This is where it goes. It goes to basically civil war conditions in France and England. And this isn't hyperbole. They're really talking about this on a serious level. And because the only way that the governments there maintain any sort of control of a situation is to cater to the Islamic, radicals, because, and they try to repress the native-born British. The whole Pakistani rape gang thing, we got 30 seconds left. If you haven't heard about that, dig into that. We're talking up to 1 million young girls were raped by Pakistani Muslims and rape gangs over the past 30 years, and the police didn't do a thing because they were afraid they would be called racist. Well, that's going to happen here. That'll happen here too. And so, because we have the same DEI instinct in our government. So, but anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and just, we need your help. We want you to be citizen journalists. Reach out to kyvoice.org. Need your help. We'll talk to you soon.